I thought May was going to be quiet. Let me tell you why May all of a sudden blew up and why it may be the biggest crowdfunding month of the year, because IPs, crossovers, sequels, expansions of stuff you already know and new stuff alongside. Let's talk details. Let's go. Look, I have to start out with the Deadly Trio. This is the deadliest day I have ever seen on crowdfunding launch simultaneously, right? The week of the 16th, 17th, and 18th of May is going to be one of the biggest crowdfunding weeks ever. I'm putting this out there right now. Now, I'm not hyperbolizing that. When I break down the 4 games that you're going to be aware of or have some periphery knowledge of, and then a 5th one as well that's sort of flown under the radar. And that's why this has the potential to be one of the biggest months ever in terms of just sheer quantity of games that are surpassing or potentially giving us the excitement that we've been so long craving, right? And that's why this is so big. And that's why you need to know about it, because again, it's a budgeting thing. Consumer. You know me, I'm on the consumer side. I like talking about from the business side. I like looking after the companies that put out the games, but ultimately, consumer, what do you need to know as someone who's interested in this? How does it break down? What do you need to know? When are they coming out? That's what this video is all about. And so that's why we have to start with this week, the 16th, the 17th, and the 18th. Aeon Trespass Odyssey, reprint, new stuff. Dead Cells, the IP that's crossing over from Scorp Mask. We're going to see what they can bring to, again, a Slay the Spire-esque game on the PC console side of things as a solo game to a multiplayer tabletop scene. Then we have Monster Hunter Iceborne, right from Steamforge. Monster Hunter's getting relatively good reviews so far. We're going to see, because they say also this one is not going to be just standalone, not going to be completely 2.0, but separate yet equal. And then last up, we can't even miss out on the fact that we have Apex freaking Legends. Again, another console port coming over the tabletop, right in between on the 17th. That's not to mention Tabletop Golf Association reprint. That's sort of the footnote there. We'll talk about that later, though. But let's break down that week right now. Aeon Trespass freaking Odyssey. It's bringing us more stuff. The Odyssey reprint, along with whatever else they got going on hidden in the shadows. Spoilers, I may have a video on what they've got hidden in the shadows. But that's going to be the biggest thing. This is a great game. This is a freaking great game. This is the game that replaced Kingdom Death Monster. I'll say it right there. I think this is better than Kingdom Death Monster in every way, shape, or form. They're putting out a product sooner. They're giving you more for your money's worth. It's not trying to be super boutique. They're not giving you 67 other miniatures between each of the expansions that get released. I know, a little bit of tongue-in-cheek there for the KDM. I say that as someone who has Gambler's Chest ordered, right? So what is it going to bring? What is the price point going to look like? Is it as good as people say? That's what you have to determine for yourself. Cycle 1, it's great. Cycle 2, it's even better. Cycle 3 is freaking fantastic. And that's what you have to know. But as someone who has played this game almost primarily solely, can you get it to the table? Because just like KDM, you're going to have to play with 4 players, 4 survivors-esque. But instead of the grotesque, overly death-ridden, death-focused KDM, with a little bit of just gratuitousness for the sake of gratuitousness, you have sort of your humans piloting these humanoid mechs, essentially, and upgrading. The battle system is unique. It's taking riffs of KDM, flavors of KDM, but I think it's doing one up better and standing on the shoulders of its predecessor. Again, not slighting KDM, because I give a lot of kudos, a lot of props to KDM as the standard bearer that a lot of other of these games of boss battlers have stood on the shoulders of in the first place. But this, in every way, shape, and form, surpasses it for me, period. And on the 16th, we're going to see what else they have in store. And it's going to be freaking amazing. So that's the first one of that week. And to be fair, that's probably setting the tone for the rest of the week, because next up on the 17th, then you have Apex Legends. Apex Legends is known as one of the online battle royale teams of 3 head-to-head survive till the end games, right? We have not seen anything like this. Now, the big departure from this one, from what I've seen, this is not going to be your typical head-to-head board game. This is going to be more of a skirmish game, a la your, X-Wing, your Armadas, your, Warhammers. You're measuring out your Star Wars Legions, those, your Marvel Crisis Protocols. That's what they've given the vibe of. Now they say from the info that's slowly leaked out, there are going to be 13 characters that you're familiar with. What are the gameplay details going to look like though? We have no freaking clue. And that's the big concern I have as someone who doesn't play those style of games, as someone who doesn't build miniatures. Like, I think this sounds really good, and it's coming from Glass Cannon Unplugged, which did Frostpunk, you know, a very relatively successful miniature-based, even though maybe you could make the argument it didn't need to be miniature-based, board game based off a successful IP from a console, right? Like, tried and true formula there. And so 2 to 4 players, you're going to have a canyon map. You're going to have an experience based on zoning where you're confronting the opponent's team. And you have unique legends that you're going to be activating team by team, outmaneuvering, activating, using your actions to go across the map. And the big thing they say, though, with this, the mechanic, the innovative mechanic they're calling, the innovative system that they're using, whatever that may entail, it better be innovative if you're going to call it innovative, though. It's going to give you a lot of reaction to when the other team is going during their turn. Line of sight issues, measuring issues. I mean, those are my concerns. How much of that is it going to entail? Or am I wrong? Is it not going to entail that? Is it going to be more grid-based? Again, as someone who prefers grid-based, which side are you on? So that's going to be framing in the middle of the week. Then on the next day, 2 other video game IPs are going head-to-head. We have, on one hand, Monster Hunter Iceborne, and then on the other side, you have Dead Cells. Couldn't be 2 different games at the same time, both of which I expect to raise kudos bucks. And that's because, let's go with Monster Hunter Iceborne first. Steamforged, this is going to be arguably a great test for Steamforged to see how well people are liking Monster Hunter. Again, as someone who criticized the first campaign, was not superly eager on it. The price point was massive. Elden Ring was even worse in that sense. The exclusives were, you know, and so I don't really want alternative sculpts. I could do without alternative sculpts. They're giving you new weapons, new monsters, slightly different mechanics, because they're very clear on saying that this is not a 2.0 version. Because the biggest thing that you don't want to do with a 2.0 version, the biggest thing what you don't want to do with a second game in a series is make the first one completely obsolete, right? We'll talk about that in a minute with another game that's launching this month, although that's launching this week instead. And that's sort of what they're saying. Like, it's a 1.5. If you like it, you're going to like the original. If you like it, you can still get the original, have an experience. If you like it, you can still get both. Because you don't want to affect your consumer base by telling them just don't get one, buy the next one, right? We've seen that with other iterations that get rid of errata, that just make 2.0 versions that are essentially the same things. And, you know, the late adopters essentially almost get a better edition. And sometimes you're just having to buy a $50 upgrade kit to make your game actually compatible with the other one that was, you know, about that price or even less. So again, not having said I've been there, but you know what I'm talking about as well. How different is it going to be? I mean, Steamforged is putting slowly out some blogs on their website to detail what else is going on, what's new. I love the artwork. If this is going to be a better version of that, sort of like Endeavor Deep Sea is the, you know, Age of Sails successor. Not that it's going to eliminate the original one, but that's the sort of thing that you want to see in terms of progression. Other one, Dead Cells. I mean, it's sort of your roguelike game, right? The solo player, you go until you die. You mutate, you die further. You mutate, you die further. You mutate, you get farther. And so they're just taking that concept a little bit of Slay the Spire-esque in the same manner of a solo game that's now being translated into a video game. And again, I think the artwork looks fantastic. I think the core of the idea is amazing, but can you translate it to the tabletop? And just like with Slay the Spire, is it going to be far enough from the original console that you're going to feel like I can own both? Or is it going to be too close to the console, meaning there's too much you're having to keep track of on the board? I mean, that's sort of why I have taken the wait and see approach with Slay the Spire. Again, it takes a 15 or 20 minute game and makes it an hour and a half. If it's going to do that, it better be a significant departure, or I better have a good reason to get it over that. And then Slay the Spire didn't give you a whole lot of significant incentive, cheaper price, potentially, mostly, to get it on crowdfunding. And so again, I'm sort of in a wait and see approach with this one as well. I have a background in Slay the Spire. I don't have a background in Dead Cells. So I don't really have a horse in this race, and I'd be open to it because I don't own the other. But that's going to be the main comparison that gets thrown down with any of these video games in the first place. Any of these cross-cover ports, that it has to be thought about. I cannot take a 15-minute game and turn it into 2 hours or 3 hours. That's not fun. That's a slog. And that's the fear with this. It's the fear with all of these. Yes, there's something better about the visceral components in front of you. I love it. It's why I do more board games. That's why I have a board game channel instead of a freaking video game channel, right? You also can't go Far Cry. If you remember that one, that all of a sudden got like the hype and then it got completely trashed when it launched because it was a steaming pile of stuff. And so I don't think you're going to see anything like that. I don't think any of these companies, have any track record of anything close to that. But it's going to be interesting to see how the splits go. What's the reason here? What's the reason with each one of these of why you should get it on crowdfunding? And the video game stuff has been very hit or miss on the why you should get it. Mostly, again, with Glass Cannon Unplugged, we saw just miniatures galore. It made Foundations of Rome almost jealous levels. And so that's going to be my concern, because each of these, I guarantee you, is going to probably run you about $150 shipped. Minimum. Is that scary for you? Yeah, it probably is. Now, may one of them be a little bit less than that? Sure, if you're getting just a small component. Or say Apex Legends offers you like 6 characters instead of 13 all in one, right? Instead of the all in. But that has to be mentioned. So take that for what you will. Now, the other big one that's launching at the beginning of the month on the 2nd is also a sequel standalone expansion. That's Clank Legacy 2 Acquisitions Incorporated. Do you need another Legacy version? By all accounts, the Clank Legacy has been one of the most consistently across the board well-received Legacy games. I have heard a numerous amount of people say that that is their favorite Legacy game of all. Now, do you like the deck building press your luck? Do you like a story campaign narrative to go along with it? Do you want a longer game time? Because that's the other concern that this game has brought up in some circles, is that this game goes a little bit longer. 45 minutes to an hour per person. That's not insignificant with a 2 to 4 player count. Also, what is it going to do differently than the first time around? Again, like I mentioned, is it going to make the first one inferior? Or is it going to outdate the first one? Or is it just going to be doing it in a different way? Pandemic 1, Pandemic 2, and Pandemic 0. I almost screwed that up for a third time. But that's the sort of comparisons it's going to get. Big fan of Penny Arcade. Jerry and Mike, love them. Jim Dark Magic, freaking fantastic character. Show me why to get this, though. The first version right now, minimum online goes for $75 as well. If you're going to make anything exclusive in terms of gameplay content, or you're going to deluxify this, because that's Direwolf's MO on the retail side of things, right? Look at the Dunes right now. Dune doesn't have a whole lot of promos, right? But Direwolf has deluxified the premium miniatures of this by holy hand grenade sizes amount of money. And that's my fear of what Clank Legacy is going to do. But then you also have these additional add-on packs for the original. So how are they going to do it different with the second time around? Now, give me some Will Wheaton Aelfell, and I'm going to give this a harder look-see. But that's going to be the real reason. What is exclusive? We've seen not a great track record of exclusivity in terms of getting it now on crowdfunding from the last 2 big Legacy campaigns that went crowdfunding. Queen's Dilemma and the Jurassic Park World one. Jurassic Park World 1 gave us amber-colored miniatures or alternative models. And plus, the other issue that kind of is underlying with both of these is, well, at least you know what you're getting with Clank Legacy, right? They can't stray too far from that departure. The problem with Jurassic World also was that you couldn't really speak on some of the mechanics, and it sort of left people wondering. And when I'm wondering about mechanics, folks, you know what that means? It means a pass. So, that's the thing that you're gonna see. Is it good or not? Right? And so that's the expression that you're going to have to sort of take in terms of what side of the fence do I fall on? Because Queen's Dilemma also jacked up the prices significantly, threw in some stuff that, like coins that maybe people really didn't want included in a base pledge, like all of the other campaigns seem to be now doing with like 5th players. Oh, get the 5th player for free, excluded in there. But it's also going to cost you $20 more than what you originally wanted. And that doesn't leave me with a good taste in my mouth either. So what's going to be the incentive with this one? We saw Queen's Dilemma, people voted with their wallets, and they kind of had a mid-campaign stall, and then they had to revise the pledge levels and give some pledge levels to people that weren't like, hey, I don't want all this other, and that's good, because it means people are listening on that side of things, because from a consumer standpoint, I could easily see this one also breaking triple freaking digits. Now that's 5 games already that I've already mentioned. The first 5 all breaking triple digits. I also wouldn't be surprised if all 5 of these games break $1 million easily. Right? Would you? No. All 5. $5 million campaigns just there. Easily said and done. Now, what else we got going on? Because we can't ignore some of the less well-known projects. The other one that I'm also interested in seeing that's launching on the same day as Clank Legacy 2 is Astro, the next version of Astro, the reimplementation, the more streamlined version, a 2.0 version of Aeon's End. And so as someone who owns too much Aeon's End, that was why I passed on it the first time, because I said, is this going to actually hold true? Is indie boards and cards going to stay with this property if it doesn't, blow things out of the water? Because I actually expected this one to do gangbusters, and it kind of was not a big hit. It didn't fizzle out per se, but it also didn't raise like $500,000. And that's just the question. Are you having people like me that are just burnt out of Aeon's End? And even though it's shorter, the boss has their own individual decks, so you don't have to cobble them together. It has an ever-changing market, so you're not just stuck with a static market the whole game, and so you're buying one thing and only having so many options. I mean, they've streamlined the heck out of some of those. You have an asymmetric homeworld that you're defending. You don't just have this generic gray protoplasmic blob of Gravehold, which is your home base that has absolutely no meaning or sentiment attached to it, apart from a name and a health point value. And so they've given some asymmetric powers to the homeworld. They've given some asymmetric hit point amounts. And so it gives you a little bit more variety. But I also haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, right? I haven't seen a lot of shout outs. This is a game I'd love to actually see if I like it more. But with someone, again, who owns too much Aeon's End, I don't really want to buy something that's going to be so much crossover without knowing for sure that I'm going to like it as well. And that's the issue with this. But this is very, very similar because they're going with a similar model. This is the Aeon's End War Eternal to the original Aeon's End. This is Astro Eternity versus Astro. And again, I'll be watching very closely. Indie Boarding Cards does, not some exclusives, but they often throw in the Aeon's End. They did, extra promo packs that were in terms of stretch goals, and then they bundle them separately. So it's going to cost you a little bit more later, but it's still pretty close either way. And I just don't know. I'm going to try and trade for this. I haven't really been trying too hard, but that's, what I'd love to try out, but it's probably not going to be before the campaign's over. So the enticement is going to be very interesting to see what they can do and how much more it does than the first one. If people really like this and it's really got the groundswell buzz, it's going to do a lot better. If not, I think it was around 200,000 raised last time, which again is great. But with the success of Aeon's End, even the last Aeon's End that people are saturated out like me was, well, more than that. So take that for what you will. Now, the next one we're going to be talking about is Table Golf Association, the reprint. Another under the radar one. This is actually launching also on the 18th, coincidentally. And this is, I have the copy sitting on my table right now, actually. It's golf with a dexterity game, only with a ball that goes across it. Now, the difference is that the original version is wooden. And so they're going with more of a cardboard focus to make it more price point friendly. Create your own holes, play your own course, do solo holes, however you want to do it. And so it's just a unique concept. As someone who hates golf, I'm pleasantly surprised so far. Full review by the time the campaign launches. But again, hopefully the price point will be much more palatable and, able to swallow if you're looking at this and any of these other 6 that I've already mentioned already. So, because I'm going to guarantee you that with indie boards and cards as well, if you missed the original one, they'll offer that too. Although with this one, I don't know why you would get the first one, just like with Aeon's End War Eternal versus the original. Like, if you have War Eternal first, I would never recommend buying the original. So that's going to be the question with this one too. Where do you fall? Do you want the little bit more deluxified version at the higher price point, if it's worth it to you, or not? You can pass on it. Next up, we have Ruse. Ruse is finally launching at the end of the month. This is on the 23rd. It's the Fox-based worker placement Euro-style game. Talked about it last month. Thought it was supposed to be launching, and then they sort of revised the date, and they said it's going to be launching now this month. A week later, but, much stiffer competition that's going up after. There's not as much launching on that last week and a half of the month, so they might have a little bit of down period where there's not a whole lot new coming out, so they can make a little wave that way. You're growing your kits, you're hunting, you're exploring. There's not a whole lot of other detail about what you're doing, except that you're going to be developing your instincts of the den with unique design, they say, territory exploration, and resource with dice management. Dice worker placement, essentially. So I'm interested to see what they can do with this. And again, coming from a company that doesn't have a whole lot else out there, you know what? Show me what you got, indie publisher. Let's go. Also launching head-to-head with that one, though, and giving it a little bit of competition that week, it's going to be Into the Godsgrave. This is Lucky Duck's latest iteration, foray in their app-based, heavy, Destinies-esque system. Now, this one's going to be a little different because it's 1 to 4 players, but this is going to be more of a cooperative sense. And this is going to be more fantasy as well. I really like the sound and the look of this one so far, much better than anything else that they've done with this app-based system. And now, app-based system is always going to be very divisive because people are like, I don't want to play an app. I'm okay with playing an app because it takes a lot of the overhead out, but I don't want to be app totally freaking dependent. And that's been some of my issues with these, especially with some of these question games, especially some of the Destiny stuff, especially the Dark Quarter things. A couple just, are a little bit too reliant, a little bit too just, I just randomly went there and found the right thing at the right time. And I just found myself like not always enjoying it. But this one gives you a little bit of mercenaries banding together, trying to take out, your enemy, opponent, whatever the big bad is in this situation. But you're going to have a different play style that's going to be selected by a plan card each time you go and play a scenario, as well as you're going to have asymmetric decks that you're going to be slowly upgrading as you go along via your rewards. Items, weapons, abilities, epic maneuvers called events. Ideal combination of your lineage as well as your class options. So a little bit of an RPG vibe there as well. So I mean, Lucky Duck at this point. They don't put out bad stuff. It's just how much do you like the app stuff? How much is this one fitting to you compared to the others? Frankly speaking, much better. Much better right now. Destiny's is a great game, right? Dark Quarter is going to be very solid. But Dark Quarter, I didn't feel like I was getting as much of the lack of alpha game that you could get. Destiny's, it didn't just long term for me. I just, love the system, love the solid nature of moving the pieces down the track in order to make them more successes if your rolls are higher. I love that. If you've got a similar system at all with this, people poo-pooed this when, they launched the first one with Destinies. Not going to sustain. That's just a fad. Here we go. Years later, 4 or 5 years later already at this point. So they're sticking with it and they're putting out different variations, because that's the other thing I was concerned about. Is every game going to be exactly the same? Know what? Nope, it's not, which is good. Good. So maybe this one is the right one for you if you didn't like the other ones as well. So take that, food for thought. Last up here from Crowdy Games, we have Evolution. Another in the Evolutions, and this is another world. And this is going to be a very interesting test of the market as well. I actually have a prototype copy. I'll have a video coming out for the campaign when this one launches at the end of the month as well. And this is it's a little bit lighter, but with the modular system that they're offering, and I don't have the modular system, so I didn't get the chance to play with that, but the modular system actually reminds me a little bit of a game that's masquerading as a family game, but actually a little bit deeper of a lighter filler game that's only still going to take you about 30 minutes, because some of these modules are going to add just enough depth, just enough replayability, and just enough oomph to make it a different experience each time, because what you're doing essentially is you're evolving your creatures. You need to get 3 creatures fully evolved, but you're going to be able to manipulate the pieces on the board, your opponent's creatures, your own creatures, in order to defend themselves, to attack other creatures. And again, the take that is actually relatively, surprisingly good. It's not take that in the sense that you're going to lose, but it's take that in the sense you got to make it worth your while, because you're not actually doing a whole lot of damage. It's just going to sort of maybe pause things, if you will. And it just kind of works. It's a smooth game. So if you have any interest in this one as well, it's just something different. And again, I say that as someone who hasn't played any other Evolution style games at all. Give it a look-see. There you go. That is it. That is a massive month though. And you can see why I was so freaking excited. I mean, like I said, 5 games easily within the month that could break $1 million. And again, there's always a couple other things that come out of nowhere. The 1 or 2 sleeper picks of the week that I don't even know about. The 1 or 2 that come out of nowhere that we haven't heard about yet, that have been announced or maybe not even announced, and they're just going to pop up. Stalker from Awakened Realms just got announced for June, so we don't have to worry about that one coming. But there's a couple others that are just sort of floating in the nebula for like Q2 of 2023. And this is why, because guaranteed one of them is going to pop up between now and the end of the month. So there you go. That's why I'm excited. That's why you should be scared and your wallet should be terrified. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. More where this came from. Stay classy. Have a great, freaking, fantastic, awesome day. Peace out. Don't skip Plague Day.